welcome back to Camp Crystal Lake. We're glad to see you returned. We've got another list of stories for you today, so sit back, relax, and enjoy the video. Story number 1. I used to work at an airport as a janitor, and luckily, I can't tell you too many insane stories. We had some weirdos, like the homeless people that often use the airport for shelter. I wouldn't bother them. And the people who had been driven insane by being unable to sleep on red-eye flights. We also had your usual Karens and male Karens, whatever you call them, that would scream, assault people, and bust up everything. But there was only one time when someone succeeded in killing someone. Well, a lot of people succeeded in killing someone. So there was a guy that walked off the airplane and into the airport and immediately drew everyone's attention because there were like 15 rolling suitcases following him. No, he wasn't pulling the suitcases as far as I could tell. The only actual baggage he was actively moving was this bag he carried in his right hand. The others were just somehow following him in a triangle-like shape, the kind of pattern you'd see geese follow. I remember that people smiled at first when they saw this bizarre sight. Some of them even took out their phones and began filming. They probably thought the whole thing was a prank of some sort. Maybe they assumed the guy was using some weird remote to get all the suitcases to follow him. As soon as they noticed the suitcases passing through poles, chairs, and people, however, their smiles fell. It was clear there was something else at work here. But what? I felt too curious about the whole situation and decided to follow closely behind the man. As I walked, I heard some people muttering their guesses to each other. I also would read the comments of people who saw the blog posts, photos, videos, drawings, etc. later. Most everyone was making similar guesses. Did all the people on his flight die and their ghosts are following him? Are all those bags of people he killed on flights? How the hell did he get on the flight with all of those? Does this guy have some weird curse where a bunch of ghost bags follow him? Those bags must contain all of his sins. They're the devil's suitcases. Those have to be holograms. Did he make, like, ghost copies of all the other passengers' bags somehow? Do you die if they pass through you? I heard different versions of the last one a lot. If that idea was in just about everyone's mind, it was no wonder they were running and leaping to get out of the way of the bags as they came rolling down the halls. They often did so with shrieks and gasps. Many others that were watching the scene from afar were performing all kinds of religious and supernatural rituals. They said prayers, crossed themselves, and so on. Still, some of the others tried to look brave. They rushed forward and ran their hands, legs, and sometimes their whole bodies through the suitcases. From what I heard later, nothing happened to them. They even seemed to look gleeful after they passed through the suitcases. However, they would later claim that they felt a certain chill, warmth, or tingling in whatever touched the suitcases. None of them could agree what the true feeling that it actually caused was. To me, those claims were about as believable as those who claimed they saw the ground catch fire where the suitcases rolled or heard mutters coming from inside the suitcases. I don't know how the people who truly believed suitcases were possessed even heard those voices or saw those games. Most of them were trembling or standing frozen with fear 20 feet away from them and their owner. That is, they were until a single unlucky incident somehow brought out the beasts in them. While the man was traveling through the baggage claim, he passed by a very old woman who needed a walker to move. She obviously couldn't get out of the way of the suitcases in time, so a few of them passed right through her. Likely due to fright, the old woman had a heart attack right there and fell over. That was enough for many of them. mob of them rushed forward with shouts and screams and surrounded the man. They began beating him with anything they could use. A swarm of security officers managed to pull the mob apart, but by then it was too late. I just wanted to turn around and get back to work, but I knew that I would likely be the one who had to clean up this mess later. Story number 2. The first thing you should know is that I'm very skeptical and I'm a logical person. And this isn't a scary story. I just want some advice. A while ago, I moved back in with my mother until I could find a new place to stay. Her house got renovated recently, and a second floor was built, in which there's a room I'm staying in. It's spacious, well ventilated, and super comfortable, so I always slept very well in it. The problem started some time ago when I was woken up in the middle of the night by my mother calling my name outside the bedroom door. The only problem was she was traveling at the time and shouldn't be back until the next day. And although I knew it was late, it wasn't that uncommon for her to wake me up to let me know she arrived. So I just assumed she got back earlier. I was really sleepy and just said, "Mom, open the door, you can come in." But she didn't. So I opened the door and found that there wasn't anybody there. So I went looking for her downstairs, only to find out that there was no one and I was home alone. I just thought it was kind of creepy, but I've had problems with sleep paralysis and insomnia before. So I just assumed it was probably just an unconscious feeling of insecure or being anxious to be by myself in a new place, and that was affecting my sleep. To be sure, I locked my bedroom door, went back to sleep, and that was about it. But then the next week, it happened again. Only this time, I thought I heard my mother calling from downstairs. So I got out of bed, and I went there, but again, no one was home except for me. After that time, I got woken up by a voice calling me, always in the middle of the night between 2 and 4 a.m. Sometimes it sounded like my mother. Others, it was just a female voice. I don't recognize it. Recently, I even heard knocking at the door and whispering. And I stopped going outside to check. At first, I just went with my anxiety hypothesis because it was only when I was in this particular room and by myself. But then it happened a day my mother was at home, and she got very confused to why I had woken her up asking if she was calling me. After that, it also happened when she and my boyfriend were home. He was sleeping with me, but only I heard it apparently. Story number 3. Personally, I've never been someone who has doubted the paranormal. As someone who has experienced the paranormal ever since I can remember, I'm no stranger to it. Undeniably, there are very creepy happenings around me, like a lot, which seems weird, but I digress. I've always been afraid of what I can't see, but more because I can feel what I can't see. You know the feeling you get when you can sense something, that chill that goes down your spine, the air around you seemingly becomes 3 times colder, and then it just stops. Since I've become accustomed to this, I tend to ignore it. But ever since my family moved into their house about 17 years ago, I've hated the way I feel, especially in the spare room, which is why I ignore the feeling. I've always avoided going in there, especially when nighttime arrives. I've always gotten a bad vibe from that room. Everyone that goes in there feels very heavy, almost like they can't breathe. The last time I went in there alone, I felt a hand gripping my shoulder, and when I moved, it wouldn't let go. Something was grabbing me like they had their hand glued to me. I was panicking, not thinking, and ran out of the room. To no avail, I still felt the presence that gripped me so harshly earlier that day. Every time the house went silent, all I could hear was whispering coming from behind me. My dog wouldn't even come near me. Forgetting about that, a week later, I'm in the spare room, again evaluating records for sale. I was on FaceTime with my friend when all of a sudden, the connection got horrible, worse than usual in that room, and the call failed. Then I heard a harsh voice calling me a bitch. Then feeling a hand shove against my shoulder, I finally got the hint after being in shock and booked it out of there. I haven't had any experiences like that since I've moved out. I am thoroughly convinced that whomever roams the back room is threatened by me and was hateful of my presence in the house. My mother is the only other person who doesn't like that room during the day, much less at night. We hope you've enjoyed your stay at Camp Crystal Lake. Be sure to subscribe, turn the bell on for notifications, hit the like button. We'll be back soon with more content, including more horror stories, as well as our first documentary about the legend of the Dog Man. Have a great day.